Hey everyone, it's Tinjus and welcome to the Season 10 Kha'Zix Rune Guide. So, Kha'Zix's rune options are quite diverse nowadays, and this opens up a lot of different playstyles that make Kha'Zix a very interesting champion to play right now. This guide will be going over all of the good rune choices for Kha'Zix. I'm actually going to be starting with the secondary runes first, and this is because Kha'Zix can mix and match secondary runes with all of the primary trees, so I'm going to go over the good secondary options to use to fit into different primary trees first. Afterwards, I'll go over the keystones and primary runes, and then I'll leave a summary at the end of the video. So, let's get right into it. So the three main trees that you use for secondary runes in this current meta include Domination, Sorcery, and Inspiration. In my opinion, Precision has been nerfed pretty hard over time, and Resolve just doesn't synergize very well with Kha'Zix at all. For domination-based secondary runes, there's really only one option you want to go for. It's Sudden Impact and Ravenous Hunter. These are Kha'Zix's strongest domination runes, with Sudden Impact giving him extra assassination potential, and Ravenous Hunter synergizing super well with Kha'Zix, letting him sustain throughout the whole game with his single target isolated Q damage, healing him a ton of HP back. Relentless Hunter is also good. It's great for getting around the map, but for the most part, Ravenous is going to be a safer option. For sorcery secondary runes, you have a few choices. You can either go for a damage focused setup or a utility focused setup. For a damage focused setup, you're going to want to run Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm. This ensures that you get the most AD possible out of your runes, which will help you kill targets easily. For a utility setup, you have three choices. You can go for either Nimbus Cloak, Transcendence, or Water Walking. Nimbus Cloak will help you more in fights by giving you move speed when you smite or flash, which can be really good for chasing down targets or outplaying them. Transcendence is a scaling keystone that gives you a very strong power spike at level 10. CDR is huge for Kha'Zix, and you normally want to get 30 to 40% CDR on Ka, so Transcendence helps a lot with getting that CDR, and will also give you a bit of AD if you manage to overcap. Water Walking makes you very strong in the river, and lets you move up and down the map faster. It's a great rune if you find yourself out on the map trying to gank or fight people often. So yeah, there's a lot of options in this tree, and in the end it really comes down to what you prefer. But if you want a standard sample page to go by, I personally run Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm when I run Sorcery second, to give me as much damage as possible. Inspiration second is great for those who like to be gold efficient. You're going to want to run Magical Footwear and either Futures Market or Cosmic Insight. The purpose of the Inspiration page is to let you power spike faster by saving you gold. It's great for players that enjoy a farm-based playstyle or just like to be efficient. Keep in mind that it won't provide as much in combat compared to Domination and Sorcery, but it's still a great option nonetheless. I personally use Footwear and Cosmic Insight whenever I run Inspiration. Alright, let's get into the juicy stuff. There are a total of 6 viable keystones that Kha'Zix can use that each have their own strengths and weaknesses. Let's start with the most obvious. Electrocute. Electrocute is taken by the majority of Kha'Zix players for its consistency and reliable damage. It gives you that extra burst of damage that can be good for securing kills when going in for assassinations. It's a very good rune for beginners in my opinion. I personally don't use this anymore, but if you don't know what to use or just want something nice and reliable, then you really can't go wrong with this rune. The alternative to Electrocute is Dark Harvest. Dark Harvest functions similar to Electrocute, except that the purpose of the rune is more about finishing off targets and securing kills, rather than reliable single target damage. Dark Harvest can enable a Kha'Zix to pick apart an enemy team with ease by letting him proc it on every target he jumps on. It's great for teamfighting and jumping on multiple targets, and it's also more flexible than Electrocute when it comes to finishing off targets below 50% HP. I really like Dark Harvest. I take it to assassinate effectively and finish off targets with ease. It is, in my opinion, Kha'Zix's strongest keystone, as the enemy really can't do anything if you get ahead with this rune, because you can just jump, reset, and kill so many enemies in a fight. The flexibility of it is just insane, and it is my go-to choice for a damage keystone on Kha'Zix. Now there's one more domination keystone that I haven't mentioned. Hail of Blades. Yes, what if I told you that Hail of Blades is actually good on Kha'Zix? Well, I made a guide on Hail of Blades Kha'Zix already. I will link it in the description, and there should also be something at the top right of your screen leading to it. So if you want to learn more about the Hail of Blades Kha'Zix playstyle, then check the guide I made for it. Essentially, it speeds up your auto attacks, which means you can assassinate at a much faster speed, and it has the highest damage output of all the domination keystones. I don't recommend this for beginners and those just wanting a nice reliable keystone, so you should probably stick to Dark Harvest or Electrocute if you want that. So for the lesser domination runes, there's really only one path you want to take: Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, and Ravenous Hunter. Sudden Impact and Eyeball will give you more damage potential, and Ravenous just has amazing synergy and will let you heal so much throughout the game. For secondary runes with a primary domination setup, I tend to run Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm for the most part. So next up, Conqueror. Conqueror Kha'Zix is an absolute monster. The keystone lets you duel almost anyone in the game and opens up the bruiser playstyle to Kha'Zix, which lets him deal with many problematic champions including bruisers and tanks. It's almost impossible to lose a 1v1 in isolation with Conqueror Kha'Zix, since it heals you, ramps up your AD over time, and is the keystone of choice for extended dueling and bruiser fights. It has great synergy with Evolved Q, but really just works well with all evolutions. I run Conqueror Kha'Zix against difficult matchups where I need to kind of scrap with other bruisers and shred down tanks. These matchups include champions like Lee Sin, Set, Ornn, and any tanky fighter type champion. For the smaller runes here, you're going to want to run Triumph, Tenacity, and Coup de Grace. Kha'Zix doesn't really use any of the other runes, so that's pretty much all you've got. You can also run Alacrity for the attack speed, which smoothens out your autos and will give you a little bit of DPS. For secondary runes, you're going to want to use Sudden Impact and Ravenous Hunter from the Domination tree. The synergy these runes have with the Conqueror playstyle is just too insane to pass up. Alright, the next keystone is Phase Rush. Phase Rush is a very popular choice among one-trick Kha'Zix players because it offers such a unique playstyle and is super fun to use. Phase Rush Kha'Zix is an extremely flexible playstyle that involves using the move speed from Phase to outplay and outmaneuver enemies. The move speed is fantastic for creating and closing distance, kiting enemies away, dodging abilities, and there's just so much more that I can say, but I can't even list all of the things the mobility from Phase can achieve. It enables a very skirmish-based playstyle that lets Kha'Zix dip in and out with the move speed quickly. I used this keystone to climb from Platinum to Master with an 80% win rate last season, and I take it against enemies that require me to stay close to them, for example matchups such as Kindred and Graves. Otherwise, because this playstyle is so different to the others that you can really just run it in any game and you'll do fine. It generally has good synergy with R-Evolve, but Q and W-Evolve are also particularly nice to use it with. It's up to you, really. For primary sorcery, your lesser runes are again preference, but you'll always want to run Nimbus Cloak with Absolute Focus Gathering Storm for more damage, or Transcendence and Waterwalking for utility. The standard option for Phase Rush secondary runes is generally Sudden Impact and Ravenous Hunter. Inspiration with Boots and Cosmic Insight is also a strong option, but like I said in the beginning, with the secondary runes it mainly just comes down to preference. So the last keystone we'll be going over is Comet. Comet is actually a lane-based keystone, so it's mostly for if you're playing mid or top Kha'Zix. Comet lets you poke down champions that lack sustain and pretty much just turns you into artillery. You pretty much just spam out Ws with W evolve and be an absolute nuisance to the enemy. Kha'Zix mains have already made a good video that goes into the idea of Comet, so I'll put a link in the description to it. I like running Inspiration second with it to get 45% CDR for maximum W spam. Alright, so that's all the keystones covered. You're probably wondering, wow, there's so many keystones and rune setups to use, Tinjus, how do we know which runes to use in which game? Well, that's the thing. There's simply no cookie cutter method to decide which runes to run. Just run the runes you'd like to use and enjoy. I can't stress this enough. Yes, of course, you can adapt your runes depending on the matchups, etc. But if you don't like the setup, then what's the point? Let me give you a quick rundown of how to adapt your runes based on matchups. Does the enemy have heavy bruisers and tanks? Go Conqueror. Are there lots of squishy targets that can be killed easily? Run a Domination keystone. Do you like Phase Rush? Go Phase Rush. The way I adapt with Phase is I take it if there are a lot of telegraphed CC abilities or ranged matchups. Champions like Twisted Fate, Camille, and Thresh are all good examples of good Phase Rush matchups because they have very straightforward CC abilities that are easy to predict. There's really nothing else to it. I personally have my own way of adapting, but it would be way too hard to explain it in a video like this, so if you want to learn more, check out some of my gameplays from Unranked the Challenger to see how I alternate runes. Now I understand with so many options, it's a little hard to decide on which runes you want to use, so I'm going to give you a sample page for each keystone that I personally use that you might like to try out. Alright, that's going to be it for this rune guide. I hope it answered your questions regarding runes on Kha'Zix. I want to know, what's your favorite keystone? My personal favorite is Hail of Blades. Comment it down below. Also, you're going to want to subscribe because you're missing out on the greatest Kha'Zix content out there, so you know, you may as well. Anyway, thanks for watching and I will see you next time.